Watching a movie, then talking about that movie into microphones. Unsolicited Conjecture Movie Club. Watching a movie.
Once again, he did it again. 2 in a row. Welcome back, everyone.
I don't know
to
how that keeps
Unsolicited
happening.
Movie Club. I am Jeremy, one of your hosts. That's Josh. And today is something special. We have a guest host. Guest host.
Hi, I'm Josh.
That's Josh, but he's not our guest. Who's our guest, Josh?
Today in the Unsolicited Conjecture Movie Club, we have Vanessa Thompson. Is it Vanessa, right? Vanessa Thompson. She is, according to this, my wife.
Read the stats. Read the stats.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't do that. No, I'm something special, as he said.
So welcome to the show. Our first guest.
Welcome.
Thank
Our
you.
inaugural guest.
We're happy to have you. We're happy to
My
have
due
you.
applause.
So tell us, what brings you here today?
My house.
Yes, we are in your house.
All right, so what are we going to be talking about today, Josh?
Today,
Number one, what are we talking about?
we're going to talk about 2017's The Endless.
Is this a movie?
It is a movie.
It's a movie.
Crazy, considering this is the Unsolicited Conjecture Movie Club.
I know, right?
But yes, a movie.
A movie. Have you seen this movie, Vanessa?
I have.
Believe it or not, we actually all just watched this movie. So I knew already before I asked that question that she had seen this movie.
I don't believe it. You said believe it or not.
I do. Okay.
I don't believe it.
All right. So when was this movie made? You said
The Endless.
2017?
2017. Surprisingly, though, it does end. Not rated.
It's not rated, huh?
It is not rated
because
because, yeah, 6.5 out of 10 on IMDB, 92% on Rotten Tomatoes, 4.3 out of 5 on Shudder.
Shudder, that's the movie, the horror movie one, right?
Horror movie
Yeah.
streaming
Yeah.
service Shudder. It's pretty good.
Not sponsored.
Not sponsored, but you can Shudder.
Don't y'all do? You have a
love you.
Shudder. You've reviewed things on Shudder before,
Yeah.
haven't you?
We've reviewed many things.
Well, for
from
for those
Shudder.
of you just listening and who can't see Vanessa and don't know who she is, Vanessa, what else do you do? Well, I know you've got a little fun action. You're on some other podcasts. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I do. I work with Gruesome Magazine and Horror News Radio to do some horror movie reviews along with our sister, brother, non-gender sibling channel, Heroes and Droids. And we cover a bunch of pop culture stuff, Star Wars, as the name would imply, but everything coming out on Disney Plus right now, anything
Nice.
Marvel related, DC related, we're going to cover on there. That's kind of my favorite one. I do love the horror stuff, but I like all the pop culture.
The pop culture nerdy
Yeah.
stuff is where it's at. So we'll put some links down to that
yeah.
below. So anyone interested in hearing more of Vanessa can also go check her stuff out. So back to the movie. Josh, who starred in this movie? Anyone we would know?
Well, the guys who made it, basically. This movie was directed.
It was directed. I believe that to be accurate.
It was directed by Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead.
And those are the two brothers in the film, correct?
Those are the two brothers in the film. Aaron Moorhead, I believe, is the older brother, and Justin is the younger brother. It was written by Justin Benson. We also have Tate Killington as Hal, Callie Hernandez as Anna, and Lou Temple as Tim.
And that's Lou L-E-W, we learned.
Yeah, Llewellyn.
What might that be short for? Llewellyn?
Maybe Llewellyn. He looks like a Llewellyn to me.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a good call.
Yeah. So, very low budget movie. Couldn't find any stats on how much this cost.
So was this, I know that you two own the DVD, but it wasn't really released anywhere?
Excuse me. We own the Blu-ray.
Blu-ray. Sorry. I don't want to
tolerate
downplay
that
it.
slander on the air.
In my house?
Yeah. No, I don't know. I saw that it was shot in California.
That's
Right.
all
Oh,
you know
so
about
then
it.
we didn't. Oh, because we'll get into it later, but the vistas are beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it
We
was
did
shot-
try and
makes
figure that
sense.
out.
I think it said outside of one of those cities that starts with an S in California.
That's quite
I
informative.
don't remember which one. I didn't write it down.
This movie was filmed outside of a city somewhere
In California.
California.
Starts with an S.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So
San
we're-
Antonio.
since we don't know a whole lot
California.
about the actual stats of this, we're gonna go straight into another topic matter, I guess we would say. And
You would say that.
I would say it, since we know that I just saw it for the first time momentarily with both of you, since this is such an unknown really kind of film, how did y'all hear about it? Where did it come from? How did it get on your radar?
How did it?
Was it one that we were covering? It might have been one that I was covering for the other podcast. Now that
Okay.
I think about it.
So you're doubling up
That
on
would've
your
led us
movie
to
podcast
watching it.
about this movie.
Yeah, why not? It's a great movie. It's
It's a
worth
smart
it.
it's smart content play.
It's yeah, exactly. It's part of the movie as well to be
Uh-huh.
cyclical in this way. But
Yeah, I remember we saw it on Shudder. It came
Yeah.
out on Shudder.
Once again, not a plug.
and I'm pretty sure we went and saw it at the Alamo some point, didn't we? I think we saw it at the Alamo
That would be
Draft
awesome.
House because they were playing it there, and we saw it and we went to go
Maybe.
see it. But it's
Also,
just,
not a plug for Alamo
Not a
Draft
plug
House. We
for
talk
Alamo.
about them a lot here too.
yeah, they're great. It's a great place to watch a movie. But it's just one of those movies that sticks with you when you watch it because you can tell it's, and not in a bad way, but you can tell it's low budget. But what they've done with the budget that they have and the story that they're telling is just so unique and different and interesting and plays on these like cosmic horror kind of ideas. So it's just one that is in a genre that I already really enjoy a lot. So it just fits right in there. And I've been kind of following these guys since this movie, and to see them now doing like Moon Knight and, you know, getting associated with Marvel and Disney and kind of seeing what they were doing before of their own merit and now what they get to do with Disney money, basically.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Disney money.
Well, it's cool seeing indie filmmakers like this getting cherry picked to do stuff that their talents are obviously applicable for.
For sure.
You know, so it's neat to see even, you know, the machine of Marvel, but it's nice to see these guys, you know, getting pulled in. But yeah, Jeremy, what is this movie about? The Endless.
Well, that's a good question. As you did say, it does indeed end at some point. But this movie's about two brothers that I guess it starts off kind of weird, as me not ever seeing it before. It starts off just kind of where there's a little bit of tension between these two brothers, and you find out very shortly it's because the older brother takes the younger brother and they leave this quote unquote UFO death cult at a younger age and kind of escape all that. And there seems to be some tension between the two because they recently got some correspondence from said death cult in the mail. And it's bringing up these little harsh feelings, I guess, if you would, between the younger brother. And so, long story short, they end up going back to the cult. And that's what the whole movie is about, them in this little particular place of the world, them exploring their feelings and a little bit of Lovecraft horror in the process.
Yeah, all of those things and more.
I mean, was I at least semi-accurate there?
Yeah,
That was pretty good.
yeah. Two brothers escape a escape a cult, and they say that they escaped about like just under 10 years ago.
About 10 years ago.
So
They're very loosey-goosey with the time in this movie.
yeah, we're not sure.
understandably.
Maybe they did escape right before
It reset.
the last reset. We don't know. But anyway, this is a spoiler-filled rant.
Have
of
we
a
ever done
podcast.
anything that wasn't spoiled? I think.
No,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna still say it.
Just in
so
case.
this is all spoiler material from now on. It's a big invisible monster.
Kind of.
That's who did it.
Kind
They don't
of.
really say it's a monster. They don't really know what it is.
Well, it's not
It's
a monster.
It's Flashpoint.
It's something. Yeah, this is a really fun movie, and I love that it starts with two quotes, one from Lovecraft,
One
Yeah,
from Unknown.
and one from I love his quotes. He always has-
Unknown. Yeah, I know the best
Unknown.
quotes.
Timeless.
Absolutely. But yeah, the oldest and strongest emotion is fear, and the strongest fear is fear of the unknown. Is the Lovecraft quote, and then
So Lovecraft was terribly afraid of the second quote,
well,
written by unknown.
Oh yeah,
obviously.
he was. Yeah, I guess it is much scarier talking to your family. He was probably scared of that.
And made
Seems
sense.
like Lovecraft was scared of a lot of things.
Especially things he didn't know.
Yeah.
So let's move right on to, as we're talking about it, the originality of this movie. I mean, just me, someone seeing it, I don't think I've ever seen something covered in such a weird and unique kind of way. These like time domes and like after the movie was done, we just sat there and talked for a few minutes trying to actually figure out how these things would work and how they work in time and why they're all different. So I thought it was very unique and original just from first time viewing. But as you two, especially you, Vanessa, as someone who's reviewed more videos than our 7 episodes, what do you think of it?
It kind of reminds me of, and I know you guys were talking about this a few episodes back when you reviewed The Ritual, that kind of similar idea of being confined to an area, and then that area being outside of your typical rules of, everyday life or time or space. And it just, whatever happens within that confined area is going to happen according to the laws that are there. And so I find it really interesting that they were able to tell these kind of individual micro stories, but when you really look at it, they're all very interconnected, these stories. The one in particular, I would love to find out, the tent one, if you watch it, if we're talking about that, how that ties into the rest. But all the others kind of sort of tie into each other. And they almost don't know, but they do know. And the way that they're playing around with that, and, they talk about the couple, how the couple is separated in their own 2 little time pods, looking for each other, thinking about each other, and could you imagine if one knew the other was there, what that would do to this kind of circle of time you live in for the rest of your life?
Yeah, what was it that the cult pastor said too? Like we never know the ways that we'll isolate ourselves. We're always surprised by the ways we isolate ourselves from the people we love, or something like that. Mm-hmm. There's I feel confident in saying now that there may be a metaphor there.
Confidence is strong
for relationships. Yep, going out on a limb.
You mean maybe like a sibling relationship?
Sure.
2 brothers.
That's one that's happening in the movie. It's a good movie. I like it.
I thought it was quality. Like I said, the originality was on point. I like the way they did kind of interweave these stories together. I was highly anticipating the end of it, showing the daughter of the 2 different people in the 2 different time domes. I thought she would appear and be an old lady somewhere living around the property. Yeah. Like maybe like the gas attendant down the street who's like 85 years old. So I thought it was going to end like that to show that they had been trapped in it for at least 80 years because representative of a young child. But other than that, like, the one thing I don't really understand, and I guess it doesn't really matter, is like how they're never really too informative of how you actually get locked into these time domes. Like, is it only by dying? Because,
well, we don't know how they started.
Yeah, we don't. You don't know how much time it takes to get locked in, because they were there for 2.5 nights and they didn't get locked into the time dome.
Well, it seems like you would have to be there at the time when it resets, turning, right?
Yeah, or it's at the ascension.
At the ascension, or whenever this entity decides to put you into one.
Yeah.
Like if you're in its domain and where all these little markers are that it has throughout these kind of mountains and woods, if you're in there, then that's kind of its territory, right? We were talking about the statues that you see kind of towards the end, all the different statues that we see. And it's like over time, I wonder how that got placed there and how it got expanded or, closed in to keep them there.
Even
will it make new ones?
The weird little pillars that seem to like outlie all of the domes. They almost remind me of like when you see guys who like pour like molten silver or something, like into ant hills.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
You know, or like how whatever they're called.
It reminds me of when you used to do it at the beach,
Yeah.
where you could just take the wet sand and pile it up on top of each other and make like those crazy sand piles. That's what it looked like to me.
Tall and
So those things
skinny.
were pretty interesting.
Yeah, and it's natural looking, but it's weird enough that
Yeah.
I mean,
you know it's not natural.
It's something unsettling, but also like it's really effective for as low budget of an effect as it is. It's like a weird looking bumpy stick, and they made a bunch of them, and it really creates an interesting kind of dimension of peculiarity.
Yeah,
to the,
unease the whole time.
Yeah,
You see something like that, and you're like, maybe I shouldn't be here.
I thought it was pretty interesting the way they kind of had it communicate through imagery the whole time, even though all the imagery they showed wasn't necessarily a form of communication. It was just a video or a photo of that person. So that's why it's like, it's also like, I guess that double take on religion right there. Like they're treating this as though it's some sort of religious being.
Well,
but
inferring meaning.
yeah,
from
exactly.
something.
That's exactly what it is, because all it's doing is showing them photos and videos of themselves from real life shit that's already happened.
Or telling them where to go, like when he went to the buoy. The photo that he saw was of the buoy on the lake, right?
Yes.
So kind of guiding them, communicating with them, mind.
But you would think that would be in a way to trap them there as opposed to show them something.
Once again, it's kind of like with the ritual. We don't know what it's trying to communicate. The only thing you really can know from that is it's watching you. It's there and you can't see it. Like the angle, that image was so close up.
Well, at least, when we watch the ritual, by the end of it, it has an obvious motive and it spells it out for you. And this one, there is no like obvious motive at the end. It's still just like, well, what the fuck was that thing we just watched?
Shitty Carl said, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It just does it because it can. Because we're the little ants and it's an ant farm, and it wants to control and But that's how Lovecraftian is that, to be completely out of control. And to have someone in the story or someone's in the story who know that.
Yeah.
And understand it and, either trying to take control or laugh in the face of it or just live with it,
Another thing that I thought was very interesting is their take of the time jump, because the time jump, it would reset and it would be as though they don't remember anything, but by the end of it, they remembered everything from before. Have you noticed that? Or at least that's what I noticed, kind of picked up on from watching.
They know they're in a loop.
Yeah, they know they're in a loop, but how do they know if they can't remember from before?
But it seems like they remember like a few seconds in.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I noticed in particular when they
start to realize, because they instinctively do the thing that they always do, and then they realize, wait a second, I've done this before.
Yeah.
So that's why when Shitty Carl or the other two,
the two in the cabin,
the other two guys in the cabin,
Gun Nut Tweaker,
the gun nut guy,
Mark or Mike,
when they actually so they don't realize that they're stuck in the loop until a couple seconds in, and after they've already said their opening lines that they've grown to hate. Which then, like I said, we don't know how it started. I mean, it makes me wonder if at some point, did somebody, summon this thing, or why did it trap the camp first? Were they already sort of?
Yeah, I don't know.
The guy in that tent was old timey, so he had to be like
he was the 1914 one, because you
and
can
tell us what a 3-second
his was the shortest
3-second loop that he was on.
I kept thinking, why didn't he just reach up and like put his finger in between that little thing when it kept jumping with the clock? The time was just jumping back. Let me just pause it for this.
I think it was probably the clock hands would just phase through your finger. Probably. Maybe so. They just end up back.
But
on
see,
the other
that guy
side.
had a 3-second loop, and he was able to iterate an entire sentence to this guy in between his loops.
Yeah.
But it just makes you,
that's the worst one.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. It's the worst one.
Moment over and over and over again for who knows how long.
That's the one though that makes me think that like it has to reduce the amount of time.
Even further back. That looked like 1800s attire. and the
Oh yeah, he looked like a
the
prospector.
record player.
Well,
Exactly.
yeah, he had the little record player going. Yeah, I got like safari kind of adventurer vibes.
Well, if he's in California, probably more.
he
like
might have been one of the first ones out there. Yeah.
fur.
And how is it the young brother sees
Hunters.
that and it's still cool? He's like, yeah, let's just stay here.
I'm gonna stay.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I'm gonna stay. I think that's
You know,
good.
those two guys play those roles so well. If you didn't know that they were also the ones who made the films, you wouldn't know they were anything other than actors because they do it so well. And they must, you know, I know they have a very long history together, but that really plays out in how they portray themselves as brothers in this movie too. It's really believable.
Yeah, they have a good chemistry, a good working, or like on-screen presence with one another. You could believe that they were brothers because of their dynamic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the way that they, you know, mess with each other. But it's really interesting to start a movie with two guys, you know, in, well, what did they call it? In their therapy. What do they call it? Their
deprogramming.
Yeah, they're cult deprogramming therapy. Like, and obviously they're having a hard time. Like they can't
10 years later too.
Yeah, they can't seem to get it together. And when they get this message, so that also begs the question, like, is it somehow messing with them? And like,
it's like, how did it send them mail? There's the real question. How did it actually send them?
I mean,
mail?
how does it generate old VHS tapes and like, you know,
and reel to reel footage?
Yeah, it's generating sort of antique media.
I kind of have a theory about the first package that got out because you know they sell beer. So this UFO death cult, as they call it, are brewers, so they sell beer to make money for whatever reason to the outside world. I guess that's how they get supplies and whatnot, right? They have people from the outside world.
Yeah, it would be difficult to set up
coming.
If you could never leave.
Right. So,
well, they mostly
what
self-sufficient,
if Llewellyn
right?
was like, "Here, send this package."
That
I feel like Lou is the, well, that's not his character's name, but we're calling him that. Would make
his
that
character
choice.
name was no, he was the one who was like, who was basically telling the brothers to
get out.
Yeah, he was having the argument with Hal. That was his name, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he was having the argument with him like, hey, no, you're going to need to tell them what's up.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need to tell them they need to get out while they can.
He was the most reasonable one there, I felt like.
Yeah. Well, and once again, you got to wonder why, like, what is the cult's motivation in increasing their numbers? You know, is it just the interest of having new people after...
Which makes that was my first question when it ended
why
as well.
Do ghosts
and that's a good point.
Say, come play with us forever and ever.
They don't, man. You've
They're
never heard
just lonely.
It's the joke. They're all ghosts from before there was electricity. They're not saying boo. They're saying, ooh, look, lights. I don't have to turn on the candle.
You think they'd?
Ooh.
You don't think they'd stay impressed?
They might.
There's been electricity for like 100 years.
They're always impressed.
All right. So Vanessa, as our guest, we're going to move on to our next subject, and let's talk about what do you think. What's your favorite scene? And it doesn't necessarily have to be a scene. It could be like an aspect of the movie you really love the most, or like one tiny little character attribute that you really dug into. But what was your favorite aspect of the movie, if you would?
That's tough. Because there's, you know, I think it's important to set the stage that this is a slow burn, right? You have to really enjoy what you're doing, enjoy the relationship that you're watching. Kind of crumble, you know, not develop, but crumble before your eyes. So you're kind of chugging along until small moments of action happens and then it ramps up to other things. But kind of one of the first things, and it's so hard because I think about the visuals that they achieved in this movie, and it's just like really some really great ones. But that I can't remember what they call it in the movie, but that tug of war game,
the struggle,
right? It's just so intense and it's so otherworldly, especially when that rope starts to go up in the air. And then it comes around to the end, which we all know, the ascent, and he drops that rope before he, I don't know, rips them to shreds or whatever he's doing with them, explodes them from the inside out with his invisible wind.
Yeah, sometimes you just have to become an invisible tornado vortex and tear everything apart.
So
Yeah.
I guess they probably invented that game, The Struggle, because the monster brought them the rope. I guess you'll never know. We can just speculate on
It
that.
is like playing with them.
It's
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
very good scene. It's interesting because it's the first time you're like, something definitely creepy and weird is going on here. It's definitely
Yeah.
not a guy on a ladder.
You
in the
really see
distance.
it. Yeah. Smiling
Yeah.
Dave or whatever his
It
name
also it
Who
infers
was
like
creepy all on his own in a
Yeah.
whole nother level.
it like infers this personal relationship with the creature, though. This sort of like understanding and trust that when to be able to throw the baseball up and know that it's not going to come right back down.
Yeah.
Like you know that it's watching and it's going to know what you're doing in a way, you know. There's communication, and it does get into sort of like a personal relationship with the entity.
Well, as opposed to the ritual where one of the main things it wanted was worship, right? It's a god that wants to be worshipped forever, wants your loyalty forever. And this one seems to care less about loyalty and worship and more about just observing and controlling the situation, almost in a comical way. So almost like a Loki, mischievous kind of character, as opposed to in the ritual, it's more of a devious kind of character.
It
So
does
it's
kind of get people in ironic situations.
little
a
it
lot.
really wants to laugh at the situation of humanity itself, like the
it's
guy
even
that hung
telling
himself.
the people to go where they wants them to go.
Yeah,
You go
yeah.
to the trailer because
Yeah.
that's where your brother will be.
Yeah, Hal got it. And see, Hal is one of the ones I think would lean more towards the worship end of it. You know, the not understanding and wanting to grasp the kind of magnanimity of this creature, while the others kind of just exist with it, right?
Yeah,
Well,
it seems
Hal
that way.
was also working on that
Equation.
equation
that's
too.
why I
So
think he's not the worship man, because he's more science driven. He's trying to figure it out in some sort
he's
of rational.
definitely
He's a little
like the
culty.
pastor.
He's definitely culty, but he's so scientific that before he does something culty, he leans in real creepy like and asks, "Hey, it's okay if we do
Yeah.
something really culty right
Pastor
now, right?"
vibes.
So
Well,
it's
yeah,
like,
he's messing with those
Yeah.
with those guys, the brothers, because you know they from the cult's perspective, they went out and trashed their name and ruined their reputation by
and there's nothing they
calling
can
them-
do about it. They
No
can't
new
go out
people
Yeah,
and
they
say
can't.
anything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but they also like called attention to this place and this this weird thing.
You'd think that
They're
would have
also
brought more
sorta-
people in to get stuck in, but I guess they haven't hit that loop because it's
Yeah.
10 years. So
But
Maybe
once
he-
again, when did the other loops start to?
great
like,
question.
we
There's
don't
so
know.
many.
Yeah.
There's so many unanswered questions, which is why it's a good movie.
Yeah.
Because it
Yeah.
doesn't answer everything.
And because it's about the fear of the unknown. So it's just like with your Bird Box and
I
some
never
of
saw
these-
that actually.
Well, it feels like a couple years ago there was sort of a rash of these movies where the monster's a thing you can't look at or don't listen to it and it can't smell you or whatever the rule happens to be.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
just
Don't
make up
say
a rule.
anything.
Yeah,
Don't
dude, you can't make a
speak.
noise. You can't. Yeah, I know just what you're saying.
I know.
So
Just stop
please
explaining.
Stop explaining.
Don't tell me.
Don't tell me because
Because it hurts. Yeah, that's what I've
Yeah.
heard. I've heard that also.
I've heard that.
So back to the movie. You just brought up the baseball scene with the magician, which we haven't even brought up once. Mitch, the magician guy.
Yeah, there's a magician guy that looks like Chris Pine.
I thought, yeah,
It's like Chris Pine's cousin,
D budget
Gris Pine.
Yeah, his
Gris Pine.
his long lost nephew.
Yeah.
But there was the scene, the baseball scene where he throws it up. See, I thought that was the magician man realizing the time differential and knowing that if he throws the baseball up high enough to leave the dome, it'll glitch out for a few seconds before it can re-enter the dome.
No, it's just the thing. You see it later. In
Well,
the
I know they
footage,
show
the
this,
thing
but-
catches it.
See, they never really show, but they don't show the thing. They just show the
Exactly.
baseball
Yeah.
come up. So
Yeah.
you don't
But
really
I
know.
think it's intentional, especially since he was a dick about the card that he did draw. That was his card.
Yeah.
So the guy's like, okay, I know me and this guy up here got a thing going on. He
Okay.
hates you as much as I hate you right now.
Yeah, you're not gonna.
So
be
we're
able
gonna
to
mess
understand
around
this.
with you. Yeah. And so much of the perspective of those videos and photographs are from this being, right?
Yeah.
So that kind of aerial view made me think that.
But it's also interesting because it is like a physical thing. Because you see it like crashing into trailers and it almost like
It
knocks
has
over
weight.
a Connex
Yeah.
and knocks over trees.
Stops a bullet.
Like you see it like crashing
can create
around.
like these barriers.
It's really neat. and you know, the only representation we sort of get is through is it the crazy girl who escaped the asylum, who was doing all the drawings?
Yeah,
pictures.
who's drawing the
Yeah.
pictures.
And there was one of them looked like it kind of like a weird.
Yeah, the
bug. It
eyes
was
in
like
the
a-
sky.
It was like a wave
Yeah.
with a bug head. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
It's a good way to represent a monster when you don't have the budget to actually represent a
Yeah.
monster.
well,
for
and
sure.
that shot of the lake too, after he gets out when he went down to get the package,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
you see that
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of
The
gray
spreading
shadow.
darkness.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And then it cuts back later on to him under the water, just freaking out, but you still
frightened.
don't see anything.
But see, that's the thing, the inherent thing about cosmic horror. When you're trying to talk about a monster that, you know, is beyond the realm of human perception. When you're talking about a creature like that, but then in a movie you show it as like, oh, it's a rubber octopus monster.
Yeah.
It loses all of the effect.
For sure.
So you say, on one hand, yeah, it's a good way to save money to just not show the monster. And that's the funny kind of sarcastic way to look at it. But at the same time, if you do show it, then it's just as hokey, you know?
Yeah, especially
You're-
if you don't have a written physical description of any sort of way from
Yeah.
the main
It's
author.
such a narrow, you know, path to try to walk, because you can go either way with a cosmic horror story like this and just make it bad.
Yeah. Well, and it leans, talking of cosmic horror, you know, at one point I think we found out that they said they didn't really read too much into Lovecraft, that, you know, there were associations with it, but they weren't trying to base it directly off anything Lovecraft ever did. But you see such ties to kind of something like The Color Out of Space, right? This intangible being that does exist with some sort of physicality, but on what plane does it exist, you know, and how can you interact with it? You can't understand because it's beyond understanding, you know?
Well, Hal even brings it up in the movie.
how
What's he say? It's
reference-
like,
he said, yeah, colors that can't be perceived.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
what
it's
the
like
color out of
describing the
space
colors.
is. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a fun illusion. And I think they made some other comment about Lovecraft kind of got near the concept, but he missed the mark. Because, well, Lovecraft is pretty xenophobic and depressed about it too.
Yeah.
You know, the whole like, well, we're insignificant, so nothing matters. It's like, well, also you're insignificant, so everything matters. You can just say that. You can say whatever you want.
Yeah.
either way works.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the next section then, since we did.
Well, what was
the
your
best
favorite scene?
I don't know if I actually
yeah.
have a favorite scene. I just really like I like the older brother character, but I like Shitty Carl.
Shitty Carl was
I
great.
wish there was more. There was
Yeah.
just enough of Shitty
Yeah.
Carl to make you wish there was more Shitty Carl.
And they put him in at just the right time because you see him, you know, pacing around when they first get there, and then
Yeah.
you see him again when he's running. He's not talking to him, and then they give you just enough. And that dude does such a good job.
He's such a Danny McBride archetype.
Yeah, the one cutaway scene where he's like sitting on the dirt bike, looking
Oh,
over the
yeah.
handlebars with the slow pull away. Like that was just it's a well acted scene.
Yeah.
It shows that deep understanding that somehow in these 3-hour time jumps, he's been able to pull all this together,
Yeah.
which is why like they have to remember something from before, or that
Oh,
guy's
yeah.
character
they
doesn't
do.
make any
They
sense.
do.
Yeah, they do.
I
And
think
he just gets
remembers
stuck
quickly.
in this barn.
He knew why the gun was there when he woke back up. And see,
Yeah.
it's interesting because it'll bring you back when you kill yourself. But they're killing themselves to avoid getting
It killing
grabbed
them.
by them.
Which I can
but,
only
Yeah.
assume means it eats them in some way. That's
but
what I
that's
have to
not
Yeah.
the
assume.
same
Yeah.
thing as the ascension when the 3 moons. That's only for the main bubble of the cult, the big 10-year loop.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I don't know what happens. Does everybody else? It's just
Well,
they
I
just
don't-
continue the
I
same
don't
way.
think you normally see the big vortex that we saw.
That was actually
everything.
if
Well, they
we
saw it
move
from
on to
inside.
the least
No,
favorite.
but I don't think that happens every time. You know, I think it was upset that it had brought these
Yeah.
brothers back that were supposed to be there,
Oh, they're trying to escape.
and they were trying to escape. Yeah. So I think it just got pissed off because it seems like the type of God character that would get pissed off.
I
know?
agree.
They
I don't
brought
know
us
how else I
Mischievous
would have
God
handled it.
who's just like, man.
I don't know how else I would have handled it, but we can move on to the next subject because that would be least favorite scene. And that was probably just that whole graphic tornado thing at the end. Once again, I don't really know how else they could have represented what they were going after. I'm not giving them a better idea. I'm just saying that was okay. That was,
Yeah.
it's the only thing I can think of after watching the movie that I think was just okay.
Well, Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer did the same thing to Galactus, and they had millions and millions of dollars. So I give these guys a pass on their goofy tornado vortex. Because also
okay.
I like the girl drew the tornado, sort of sucking at
Yeah.
the pixels of the world.
That's what I thought was kind of weird
maybe
about
it
it.
does happen every
Maybe
time.
I think
then.
that's the way that it resets, but I don't know what that reset means in relationship to the other
all the other resets.
smaller bubbles.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe it is just, nabbing people and doing whatever it wants. But that's the whole point. You're not supposed to know what it's thinking. You're not supposed to know what it's doing. And that's the terrifying thing. You are its puppet. That's why he was saying, like, you can never, once you give in once, you're done.
Yeah.
Like, you can never submit to it.
Those are two very interesting characters to kind of pull out through the end like that.
And watching those two guys, clearly not the best CG fire either. Some After Effects fire. But once again, this is such a low budget movie that
at least they had After Effects.
Yeah,
They're trying to get the
still
point
looked good.
across.
Yeah.
But lighting the cabin on fire, so fuck you, that's why.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was great.
Yes, that's awesome.
That was great. I don't know. I don't know if I have a least favorite scene. I pretty much like the whole thing.
Okay, that's acceptable. I guess you can do that. So if we're going to move on from that, we can talk about the general social impact and talk about like how this movie affected you, for lack of a better term. Now, I know we've talked about it a lot throughout the movie, how it was different, but how does it kind of make you see life differently, if that makes sense? How does it affect your personal vision on things, or maybe how you would interpret movies from now on? Like, it was, I'll go ahead and say for me, it was really unique, the time jump aspect, because as soon as it was over, I instantly wanted to talk about that. And I'm sure that's what most people will want to talk about as soon as they're done with this. It gives you a new kind of relation on time. The little brother in the movie specifically said, who doesn't want to live forever? You only die for a second, but you get to live forever. And so that was kind of like, it's a funny play on that age-old thing that everyone is supposed to be searching for.
Yeah. I don't know. Vanessa, what do you think?
Excellent opinion.
Thanks for sending that my way. Creatively watching a movie like that, especially around the time that we watched that, because we were watching this, The Ritual, The Void. It was kind of a moment when a lot of Lovecraftian themed and movies with that kind of idea were coming out, low budget, telling these kind of cosmic stories, cosmic horror stories, but within very contained kind of human stories, because if you look at this movie, it's two brothers who are just in the worst part of their life. They don't want to be around each other. They don't want to take care of each other. Nothing is going right or their way. And they have to kind of have this moment of conflict and this moment of really coming to understanding each other before they can come out the other side more connected and more like family. So you could take the kind of monster out of this movie and still have a story about two brothers going through this kind of emotional journey. So that really spoke to me a lot too, the way that they were able to tell that story while also interweaving these kind of bigger, grander ideas of, life doesn't care what happens to you. It's like the whole be here now kind of, way of thinking, life doesn't care. And all of these kind of cosmic horror movies that we talk about, it doesn't matter. Nothing matters because you are infinitesimal to whatever else is out there, right? So just be here now, man.
No, I like that.
Live the moment now.
That's a really good way of looking at it. I've noticed we've reviewed a lot of these lower budget kind of horror movies, and the one continuous thing that comes up is the reason these movies work so well is that even like when you, and I'll relate it back to Prey in particular, even if you remove the predator from Prey, it's still a good story, and that's what makes it a good movie. And just like with this, even if you remove the monster or the ethereal being that we're never allowed to see, even if that wasn't really a part of it, and they just had these crazy time jumps, the story is still there. Even without the crazy time jumps, there's still good story there with the whole cult aspect of it. So it's all about the story, and this story delivers, in my opinion.
I mean, in a way, the monster actually makes it easier for the main characters.
Yes.
You know, for the brothers. Because how many people end up having this kind of distrust? It's like the younger brother distrusts his older brother because he doesn't like the situation they're in, and he doesn't really remember enough about the cult.
Without the older,
it's sort of abstract how long. I mean, it said they were gone about 10 years, but both of those guys look 30 to me.
Yeah.
So I think they were supposed to be more like 20 or early 20s. So they left when they were 12,
24, 25-ish is what I think they're aiming for then.
Yeah. So it was like teenagers probably when they got away. But, you know, he wants that. He wants that back. And you think about just brothers having, you know, interpersonal conflict.
Or realistically, without the
usually
monster,
get a
the
monster,
younger brother would have
like,
stayed.
Yeah, exactly.
Would have
and they would
100%
have
stayed.
split up. Yeah. That's what would happen if there's not actually a monster.
Yeah, exactly.
Know?
That's a really good point.
But still, the thing that, you know, made the younger brother want to leave was just the acknowledgement from the older brother that, you know, he was going to stay because he was respecting that decision. So that in and of itself was all he really wanted. That was the resolution, was just the understanding that his older brother saw him as an equal and he was good. Really, that once he had that, he's like, well, now I don't need the cult because I actually have a brother, I have a partner.
Well, it kind of parallels to what they were saying the whole time when they were telling them, like, it's better to have total control over your life than to think that you have control when you actually give a piece of it away.
Yes.
And that's kind of what the younger brother's feeling the whole time, you know, controlled in every way, where he just feels like anything is better than what we've been going through.
All right. All makes sense. Sounds like we're doing good so far. It sounds like we all really enjoyed this movie. So knowing that we all enjoyed this movie, is there anything in particular you would change about the movie? Anyone you would have liked to see in it as one of the main characters or anything like that? Anything you would have done differently? Anything you can tell me to fuck right off and I would change nothing.
And light myself on fire.
No, I think this is a really good example of this. There haven't been many. There's been a lot of love, like attempts at Lovecraft type stories, cosmic horror stories, and usually even the good ones kind of aren't. Like even your Event Horizons and your In the Mouth of Madnesses, those have their issues and tend to, you know, not really hold up. This movie has, like, sure, you can just say it's boring if you don't want to pay attention to it, but it has a gravitas to it. You know, there's a weight, like an emotional weight to this movie that I think really helps keep you locked in to the characters and to the story and keeps you caring about the people involved. So, I mean, for me, if it works, there's nothing I need to fix on it. But, well, no, tentacle monster. I'd put that in.
You would add tentacle.
Yeah, put in tentacle.
Visible tentacle.
That makes
Cthulhu
sense.
should have showed up at the end and been like, remember, kids, family's important.
I still don't. I thought the circles, I guess the silver circles with the jewel in the center, they never really explained those throughout the movie either.
I think it's just because you remember the birds. You'd see the bird, the circles.
That's something I thought was really interesting that they never really tied in either. Is the birds moving around?
It's just the symbolism. I mean, it makes a circle in the sky.
That air of misunderstanding.
Well, the first time they showed it was making like an infinity. The birds.
Yeah, just that weird creepiness.
Yeah.
Right? That thing that you don't understand, you can't comprehend, you know, beyond anything that you could even try to explain.
And that scene where the brother gets the Polaroids when he's by himself, it kind of looked almost like the birds turned into the Polaroid as it was, because he was staring up at the birds and then it went to like the close up and then the Polaroid fell down.
Well, you saw some of the birds at the end were smashing into the wall. Those birds must have been caught inside the loop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why they couldn't pass back out. They couldn't pass back
and
through.
it does seem to have, so it has its time pods, but it seems to have an outer kind of realm that it's
that all these nest inside
stuck in for some reason, right? That's an interesting thing too. You think about like this creature that can do whatever it wants, this mentality that can do whatever it wants, but still confined. Why is it confined? What confined it? What keeps it there? Is it actually polarized by the Earth and that's why it can't move?
Isn't there also like a Star Trek original series episode with basically this exact same thing, but it's like a little kid like painted blue or something? Remember, like it's the same kind of story. It's the same thing, you know, taking your free will like that, but it's a lot more effective when.
Well, I like the way they build up the scene with the compass, like, oh, only follow the compass and never trust your mind, and then never really do anything about it.
Well, they say
that never pays off.
Never
later.
Trust your eyes, or don't trust what you see. And what's I thought was really interesting, I picked up a few times where what they were doing was shooting from one angle and then switching and shooting from the same perspective, but from the other. So you had the same background, but the person was facing the other direction. So there were these disorienting shots where they would actually like turn both times. So the same background is behind you when you turn both ways, when you're looking both directions. You're seeing the same thing.
Yeah, that I noticed that in particular the first time he was walking away from the car down that
with the
trail.
road, and you saw the swirl of birds, and he looks back and the swirl of birds, and he looks back again, and then it's gone. Yeah, it's really neat how they do that sort of disorienting thing just by changing the direction of the shot.
Well, I like the way also the very end they kind of switched it up and tricked you a little bit, because they start in with that shot of the picture that their mom did, the painting, and it makes you think that that's where their loop started. Like, oh shit, they actually did get trapped, and they're starting their loop right here by the picture, and then they blast through. So I thought that was a good way to have a happy ending.
Well, that's in a real Lovecraft story. That's exactly what it would have been. They realized they're stuck in the loop too.
Yeah.
You know, or they're trying to escape and they realize, oh, we've tried to escape a bunch of times before.
But that's kind of what's great about this one, right? Is in the void, like they're in on the other side, right?
Oh yeah.
And in the ritual, you know, like you guys were saying, all his friends are dead, and now he has to make it back and kind of explain this whole scenario. Where's that going to go? But in this one, you kind of get a happy ending, which doesn't happen in this kind of storytelling ever. And it's kind of nice. We talk about that a lot. It's not that fun to watch a movie where the hero doesn't win. You know, it's like too close to real life.
Yeah, it's too real. It's too real.
I'm not watching movies for the realism in that way. So it's nice to have that, you know?
For sure. For sure.
Oh, yeah.
So since this was 2017, it came out. Wow, we did a lot of 2017 movie reviews. We like that year for movies.
Yeah, these ones
Lovecraftian.
Like I said, these last two, I think it was 2017. The other was 2018, but they were both shot like right around the same time. All these.
So here's a question: would you like to see this franchise, quote unquote, continue anymore? Would you like to see another movie based around the same generalized plot matter? Maybe somewhere else, maybe somewhere a little different. What do you think? Or is this something that's run its course?
Let's not Cloverfield this.
Okay. Well, Cloverfield is different. Cloverfield, they're just making random movies and sticking that Cloverfield.
Just make anything a Cloverfield.
Yeah, exactly.
No, you know, it's very rare that you can successfully continue on when you've had something so unique and so raw, you know, and you don't want to taint that by throwing more money at it and thinking you can tell a better story than what you already did.
For sure.
I think a sequel, the two brothers get a new job as landscapers at a castle, but it turns out their boss is a vampire.
Well, I'd like to say there's a movie, I think it's called Something in the Dirt, that came out this year. That's just the two of them. It was kind of made during COVID, very small budget, very small kind of. internal story that they're telling. But it, from what I saw, looked really interesting. And once again, playing with those sort of cosmic themes or maybe alien themes, you know, and I'm really interested to see that one.
Didn't they had another movie before this one too, I think, called
Spring.
Was it called Spring? Didn't they have something called like Convergence, or I thought there was another
Something like that. Yeah.
I think they had they've delved into the sort of, you know, the cosmic horror a few times.
Yeah.
I think, but
Well,
they're
that
good
seems
at
to be
it.
their genre. Yeah,
Yeah,
they're
they
good at
do
it.
cool stuff.
And
So
Moon Knight.
I would definitely like to see more from them. I'm glad they're getting some work over there at Disney, making our favorite shows.
Making all those Disney bucks.
Yeah.
Where they don't like to
Definitely.
pay their content creators.
Well,
But on that note,
they pay these guys, and then they can take that money and
Pay other people.
make their own more of their own movies.
that's fine. That's,
That's-
fine. I'll
that's-
watch the next one that comes out.
Yeah, exactly.
You said that movie's already out? Uh-oh, look at that. We're almost out of space. Isn't that perfect? We have 15 minutes left, but we have way less of that of the show because we are at the end. So, Vanessa, where can the people find you if they want to follow you?
Definitely check out Gruesome Magazine and Heroes and Droids. We are on YouTube if you want to see my face and not just hear my voice, or on all streaming podcast services. You can find us there. You can find me on my Instagram, which is Scarlet with 2 T's _ Spitfire. We keep it fun there.
Nice, nice. All right, there we go. That's Vanessa. And once again, all of those links will be down in the show notes. Josh, why don't you hit them with the bangers? That is our information.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed this, why don't you write in and tell us unsolicitedconjecture@gmail.com. What did you think of The Endless? What other movies do you want us to take a look at? If you have any suggestions, why don't you go ahead and send us an email there, or reach out on Twitter at UC with J&J, probably.
And we will probably not respond to any of those, but you can once
I
again
might get
send
a
us those
notification
messages.
somehow and see it.
That's right. How much do y'all want to bet me that Josh is ill prepared for the outro song as again?
Well, yeah, we've
Just like
been
every
doing a
time.
podcast here, Jeremy.
Yeah, I'm staring
not,
directly at him.
you
That's why
expect
I'm
me
making
to
fun of
be
him.
playing around
I'm
on
poking
my
the bear.
phone?
I'm poking the bear.
Oh, still on YouTube, right? And Spotify.
Well, Spotify, yes,
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
gonna get back on YouTube.
Back on YouTube.
We're gonna throw these up with maybe just like a static picture for those of you who only do the YouTube thing, so you can check us out there.
Yeah, but check us out on Spotify. Leave a review. Join our Patreon. Make us a Patreon and join it.
Hit us with that music.
All right, everybody. Bye.
Watching a movie, then talking about